Well, welcome to the Fit Archer, Muskie Mark. What's going on, buddy?
Just hanging out, living the dream.
Are you the model Fit Archer?
I'm not really all that fit anymore, but you know, I when it comes to muskie fishing, I'm probably fit more than most.
Yeah, you put my brother to shame the other day, it sounds like.
Yeah. Well, he was getting all the action because he had a pretty good lure on, and he kept grinning and saying, "I think I should be showing you how to do it," he says, because he kept hooking into them. But they
Yeah,
wanted that lure, which is good. He lost two and caught two. He did pretty good.
that's pretty good. Well, let's tell everybody who you are. This is my buddy Mark Samish. We went to high school together many, many years ago. I mean, it's been 26 years. Has it been 26 years, 27 years?
Yeah,
I don't
apparently.
know. I got some product in my hair here, so you think I'm younger than I am because I'm looking all young with this
Yeah,
brown hair, but don't
I'm
let
going
it.
reverse mohawk.
There you go. But yeah, we went to high school together, and Mark's got a unique story. He's got a great business he's rocking right now, doing Muskie Mark's guide, Muskie Mark's fishing. So he's a muskie guide, a fishing guide, really back in our area where we grew up. But just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, Mark, what you do, where you live, how you grew up, and we'll get into some of the fun stuff about all our escapades as little kids and stealing donuts from your bakery and stealing rubber worms from your tackle box and fishing in your backyard. So tell the listeners a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, I run Muskie Mark's Guide Service. I live in Elroy, Wisconsin. I grew up in Boston with JP, and I've been doing muskie guiding now for about 17 years, and other types of fish as well. We started doing some bear baiting too now. Um, people that want to bear hunt in Area C. So I do a lot of different things. But what you see here behind me is also Muskie Mark's line of lures. I've got 8 different lures that I make, and this is the one Brandon was nailing them on. This is one that we haven't brought out yet. This here is just going to be the straight 8, we'll call it. But yeah, we got a lot of different lures here. Me and the kids make them all and go to shows in the wintertime, book trips, and come summertime, I'm busy taking people fishing.
Yeah, you've been fishing for a long time. So we grew up together since we've been, we're 45, 46 years old. I think you might be 40. Are you 46? You 45 still?
46.
46. So, Mark grew up, he lived right in smack dab middle of Boston, Wisconsin, home, just an amazing place to grow up. We lived right on the Leavenworth River, and Mark's backyard was Riverside Park. So they lived above the bakery that his parents owned. And of course, when your friend owns the bakery and your kids, where did you always want to go? I cannot imagine how frustrated your mom and dad probably got with us every day trying to show up and take some cream soda and some day-old donuts. And then we'd go in the back. We'd go back and we'd fish. We'd fish at Leavenworth River. We pulled about every fish out of there you can imagine.
Well, there's still plenty of fish in there. But, yeah, I remember we were always into bass fishing a lot when we were kids. That seemed like the thing that we always wanted. We get bass and pike and bluegills back there. And, yeah, it was good training grounds for somebody to, was going to do something in fishing. I didn't really know I was going to do anything in fishing. I'd done all kinds of things, earlier in my adult life. And all of a sudden one day it just clicked that that's what I should be doing,
But you
So,
had, if you think of it, yeah, just your Uncle Al just popped into my mind. Like he
yeah.
was a big time bass fisherman in our area. Like
Yeah.
he was probably the
Oh,
most
yeah.
well-known bass fisherman in our area. So you really grew up. I mean, fishing is completely in your blood, although you're a great hunter and you do a lot of hunting, but fishing's been in your
Yeah.
blood since you've been tiny.
Yeah. Uncle Al helped me out a lot. I remember he had the bait shop. I used to get some wonderful gifts from Uncle Al at Christmas time, and that helped me probably be a better fisherman. I had a lot of stuff. Got a lot of rubber worms from Uncle Al.
Yeah. Mark's
Uh,
tackle box was no matter what rubber worm configuration you ever needed, Mark had all of it. Every color, every style. Like, you had tackle boxes. I could see it in my mind. The cardboard laid out so you could break dance a little bit because you had that going for a while, if you
Yeah.
remember that. And then we
Yep.
would go fishing. You'd open up all those boxes of rubber worms everywhere, and we just wanted to get handfuls of them.
Yeah, we did a lot of fishing down below the dam too.
Yep. We're
So
fortunate to grow up where we grew up. I mean, honestly, as
yeah,
kids, you know, think of it today. And I don't know, in Elroy, so Elroy, just so the listeners know, a very small town. I mean, quite a bit
yeah.
smaller than where we grew up. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. You don't just let your kids run down to the, if there was a river in Phoenix, we wouldn't let our kids just run down to the river and fish. Like, I mean, at 7, 8 years old, probably 9 years old, I got a fishing pole on my bike, and I ride the
Yep.
mile into town, or less than that, maybe quarter mile to your place. We go down, we'd be under the dam, pulling out crawfish, swinging off a rope into the water. I mean, it's just growing up there, man, what a blessing it was to be an outdoor.
Well, times were different too. I mean, yeah, I mean, there was things in the world going on that weren't right neither. You know, there was the John Wayne Gacy's and all that stuff back then, you know. But kids growing up, you know, we got out, we lived life, and we did stuff, and our parents told us what time to be home, and sometimes we weren't home at that time. But I mean, there's lots of times I was fishing all day, and then we'd go down below the dam, we'd fish at night for catfish. I mean, you know, we were out at all hours doing stuff as kids growing up. And kids nowadays, they don't run around and do stuff like we did back then. I think, you know, just things going on in the world.
Yeah,
Kind
it's
of.
a it really is a different era. I remember, you know, when got a little bit older, you know, my parents separated, and then we moved out to the trailer court out on Highway 82, and Lemonweir Mills was out there. And I always heard about Lemonweir Mills. There's this place that had another dam that was a dam below the dam we're talking about, and
Right.
always wanted to fish it. So me and a friend, I don't even remember who it was, what friend it was. We jumped on our bikes. We got on the highway. I mean, this is a 2-lane major highway, and we're probably 10 years old, and we ride our bikes all the way out there. I turned right to go to Lemonweir Mills, and we got about halfway down that road, and I'm like, I don't think this is Lemonweir Mills. So we came back to Highway 82, and we went south on Highway 82 for probably another 4 or 5 miles before we ended up going back home. I mean, think about that today, letting your 10-year-old kid get on a bicycle on a 2-lane major highway, and just my parents were working. You know, you just kept yourself out of trouble and did everything you can do. But then when we found Lemonweir Mills, man, we got into some good fish. When I finally realized where it was, we caught some good fish down there.
Yeah, it was a good place to grow up. You know, not only just the fishing here. I mean, we had the Wisconsin River, Castle Rock, Petenwell. I remember going out on the railroad trestle with you and John at one time, walking out there, walk down and fish off the pillars. You know, there's a lot of places a person can go and fish, and the landscape here. If you ever stop and think about it, you know, you drive through a place like Iowa or something like that. It's very, I mean, it's just corn, and when you get in the area that we're in, you get north of town, it's kind of flat. You got river bottoms and stuff, and you get south of town, you get into the hills and the bluffs, like out where we hunted, grew up hunting, and I still hunt there, and that's where Hunter hunts now. But I mean, we're right smack dab in the middle on the edge of the driftless area, and we got a lot of change in topography and just a lot going on. And when you go one direction, you got one thing. You go another direction, you got another thing. And it's a very unique area to be in. Yeah,
it really is. Some of my favorite memories growing up fishing on the Lemonweir, I'd have to say, you'll find this funny, but I know you've come with us multiple times. I'm going to assume you probably have. We would go out past the dairy aisle, out across some R&R, out back in there on that little rock island, and we would bullhead fish at night. So, you know, for some listeners, you know, that don't know what a bullhead is, we're fishing, you know, regular, just freshwater river system. They're like a little catfish. They look like a catfish.
They taste good.
They taste good. And so we would fish them at night. I love this. My dad always had little kerosene lanterns, and he'd get them ready, and he had 2 little lanterns, and then we would cast out, and we'd have the poles up on a little anchor. So, at night you'd watch the tips jig when you had them, and we'd catch 10, 12 bullheads. And then my dad had a smoker. So he would smoke them. And the way that he cleaned them, I was just telling a friend of mine this a couple weeks ago, he would boil water, put it in a 5-gallon bucket. And so you'd have boiling water in a 5-gallon bucket, and he would dump the bullhead in there. And then you just stir the bullhead around, and the skin just comes right off them. So then you take them out of that, and then you put them, the heads and the tails were off, obviously, and you put them in the smoker. And there's nothing better. I mean, I always look forward to smoked bullhead. You pull them out, be right on a little paper plate in the house, and just peel it apart and eat it. It had a great smoked flavor, no fishiness to it whatsoever. But we spent a lot of time bullhead, and we always used, some people use worms and night crawlers. We use stew meat. So you go to the store and you buy them little chunks of stew beef, and you put it on a small little hook, cast it out right on the bottom, sit there and have fun and just land big old bullheads. Man, I remember that like it was yesterday.
Yeah, we used to drive down to Laval with my parents and catch bullheads there too. We used to do was, we used to take, I'd skin them traditionally with the players, and then I would take flour and lemon pepper, and I'd just fry them in butter. And they got like big prehistoric bones that were not like small bones like a pike. You just eat it right off the bone like it was chicken, and it was, I mean, they're delicious. I mean, probably one of the most underrated thing for fish to eat nowadays. I mean, people really I don't think go bullhead fishing anymore.
Right.
Like they used to.
No, I love it. I'd still do it here. Now people do a lot of catfishing because that's kind of more cool and popular.
Yeah.
But so when we graduated high school, why don't you kind of go through some of the years and give me like a kind of a story of what you did, where'd you end up, and then to the point where you got now.
I kind of I was kind of dabbling in muskie fishing, a little bit as I was into my late teens and then early adulthood. But I went to school for auto and diesel, and when you got back home here, I'm not a guy that's going to live in the city. I got to live up close to where I grew up. I like my home area, hometown, or this area. I just love it. But the pay wasn't as great here. So then after being an auto diesel mechanic for a while, I went and worked at a foundry, and I was there for a while and did all kinds of things, from grinding iron to swing them all and knock off. I became an industrial engineering analyst right at the end of it. I ran Plant 5 knockoff for a while. But while I was doing some of that, I started to get into guiding. I started to get into muskie fishing. I started to get into guiding. I started a club with a group of fellows down in the Laval area, and everything kind of transitioned up here to Mauston. But it was a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It still goes on today. And I'm not on the board or anything because I ran it for like 10 years or better. And anyway, we stocked about $46,000 worth of muskies. But when I really decided to throw my hat in the ring hard on guiding is when my wife got pregnant with Olivia. Of course, you know how it goes when you got kids start coming in. You gotta provide. So I'm like, this is a great way to provide, and it's something I love doing. And when I started doing it, I've always done well with people. I mean, if you're ever going to be a guide or anything like that, you got to be good with people. You got to talk good with people and laugh, have fun, joke around. You got to be entertaining if you're going to be a muskie guy, because there's going to be a lot of times that you're not going to be getting fish because, they're called the fish at 10,000 casts. So, I knew I could be entertaining. I can be a goofball at times, but I guess the thing that, it just struck me, I should have been doing this like a long time ago, but I've been doing it for 17. Olivia's 16 now. I just took her to work here a little bit ago, but she couldn't get her license yet because of the whole COVID thing, but now she's starting her driving. But I've been doing it for 17 years, and it just seems like time flies by. You don't even realize it. But that's kind of how I got into doing it. And the club's been going good. We've stocked like $46,000 worth of fish in the area. in the last, I don't know, 12, 15 years or something like that.
So Mark, what was the muskie population in your area in the rivers and stuff? Because you guys are doing really well, but what was the population of them? It seemed like very few and far between. Did you ever hear
Yeah.
anybody
Well,
catch
you
them?
know, the thing was like, I can remember like John's dad taking me and John or something walleye fishing down below one of the dams, and we seen a guy hook into a muskie. I mean, that was way back then that there were some there, but nobody was really fishing for them. They weren't going hard. But the DNR had started stocking them like back in the 80s. Now, and the reason they had to, I mean, it wasn't that they weren't here. I don't know if you remember any of the Rosins from Austin. Rich Rosin, he's always doing like some
Yep.
stuff for like looking for history stuff or whatnot. And he sent me a thing that he found on microfish in the library one day, and it was a newspaper clipping from the late 1800s about how this family caught a muskie at the mouth of the Lemonware.
Which
That
is
was
where? Where's the mouth of the Lemonware?
where Nine Eagles was, where it comes into the Wisconsin River.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And it'd be over on HH by Linden State, between 82 and Linden Station. And they caught a large muskie that fed their family for like a week or something like that. And that's what the clipping said from the late 1800s. So they were there, but a lot of pollution was not good for the fish over the years. And back in the 60s, pollution was really bad. I mean, there was actually rivers that had started on fire in places in the country, and even in Wisconsin, because the pollution was so bad on the surface of these rivers and in the water. So, you know, the Clean Water Act happened in 1974, but things didn't really start happening until about 78 to 1980. And that's when all your pollution from, say, like your wastewater plants, everything used to just go in the river at one point. And I actually worked in wastewater here for the city for 11 years, and I ran the plant. But now I do this full time. So I know a lot about the water quality and that whole aspect of things. From I was state certified in lab and phosphorus and all of it. The thing is the pollution got cleaned up. So then stocking efforts and started happening, and so you started seeing all these fish come about, and it was happening, but it wasn't really on the map. I mean, people really thought about Petenwell for muskie fishing, but they didn't really think about Castle Rock much.
So would you say the stocking, there was muskies, but there were probably few and far between, but the stocking efforts after the pollution's cleaned up, pick the numbers up? Because I remember when I was remember they always had the fishery contest up by the dairy aisle, or the ice fishing. And we were jigging right there, right off the highway. And when I was jigging,
you caught one. I remember that.
A little, like an 8-inch, and there was Tom Jadarski, if you remember him.
Yep.
Of course you remember Tom, he was the DNR. He was there for it, and he came over, he goes, that's one of our muskie fingerlings, or whatever they called it. So they were stocking. Where were they stocking to get fish on the upper Lemonware above our dam? Where were they putting them in at?
That's a good question. I think that they may have been stocking there. I think that was a tiger, because there were some tigers that were found out there. So they don't stock tigers anymore. Another place they'd been stocking was Redstone all these years, and that was a known muskie fishing destination. But one of the places that also got stocked right in the very beginning, and they quit because the people on that lake didn't want them, was Dutch Hollow. So there's actually, I don't even know if there's any alive in there. I mean, if they were, they'd be really old, but they'd have been tiger muskies. And which tiger muskies are a true hybrid. So only one, I can't remember if it's the male or the female, only one of them can breed, not the other one. And so therefore, they're not going to, reproduce or anything like that. Another thing though, with just regular muskies that get stocked nowadays, the reproduction isn't very good. And nobody really knows how the reproduction, because the DNR really hasn't done any studies on it. The other thing that's really, really helping muskies is you know, the efforts that were put into promoting catch and release, and also that's big right there. Just the idea of catch and release versus, you know, catch and keep, because for a long time we had a hard time getting 50-inch size limits here. The DNR did not respond well to the people wanting 50-inch size limits, and people were driving through Wisconsin to go to Minnesota, you know, as a muskie destination, and then of course they always went to Canada too. But we finally got 50-inch size limits in a lot of places, and I fought real hard to get some of that stuff. The first one I got was Redstone. Finally, the DNR kicked in and did it on Castle Rock, Petenwell, and down on the river where we fish. So everywhere that I fish, it's 50-inch size limit now.
When you say 50-inch size limit, do you mean you can't keep it unless it's over 50 inches?
Correct. And a lot of people nowadays wouldn't keep it anyway.
Right.
But we get people from other countries and stuff that come here that don't know, you know, the things that we like and love here. And, you know, like we'll throw fish back just to catch them again. But sometimes people come from other places and they catch a fish like that. That's dinner, you know. And
well, I'm just laughing because when Severson got into bass fishing a lot up in in La Crosse, you know, he got heavy into bass fishing. He was fishing tournaments, and John loves. He'd probably fish more than he would hunt. He loves to fish, and he's a great fisherman.
Oh, yeah.
I would always tease him like, "Hey, I went out today and I caught 4 largemouth. Man, I fried up good." He's like, "You can't be keeping those fish and frying them up." And then he would always talk about Jason Chambers, because Chambers, you know, they'd catch these big old fish down in the Wisconsin River where his grandma was. And Chambers was always like, "What do you mean you don't eat it? I ate that big northern, and we ate 4 big largemouth." And so I just laugh about that because, you know, some people, they don't get it. And so I was going to joke with you and say, you mean the couple big, you know, 45 inches I caught muskie out of the Petenwell the other day, I wasn't supposed to fry those up and eat them up, you know?
Well, that would have been illegal, but no, it used to be 45 there. No, I can remember like growing up though. I mean, I don't even think my dad knew how to fillet a fish. We just scaled everything and gutted it, and that's how we ate fish back. I mean, we ate everything. I can remember like the biggest crappie I ever caught to this day. I mean, this thing was huge. I don't even know how big it was because we didn't even bother measuring it. All I know it was giant, and we ate it. We didn't even think twice, you know. When I was a little kid, you know. I mean, that's just, we ate everything back then, you know.
My dad we would eat some northerns, but he never kept big northerns. The only northerns that he would keep, and we ice fish for him all the time. We love that, you know. Obviously, ice fishing in Wisconsin is so much fun. If somebody's never done it, it's, you know, as it freezes, you get 3, 4, 5 inches ice, sometimes more or ice on top of the water, and you go out, drive your truck on it, drill holes and ice fish. But my dad would only keep the northerns that he was going to pickle. So we would do pickled northern. And he always liked the little hammer handles. He goes, those are just better. But all the big northerns we always released. You know, we never kept bass. My dad never, you know, growing up, I think everybody, when you fished, you ate it. That was just kind of what.
Yeah, we did.
You know, there wasn't sport like there is today and stuff like that. But my dad never liked crappie, never liked bass. He only liked walleye, bluegill, and then pickled northern. So that was, you know, we would do a lot of fishing for bluegill because we wanted to eat them. And if anybody's ever had a bluegill, they're delicious. I mean, I'm just like you. I'm assuming you guys did the same, but when my brother and I had my brother on the podcast, we talked about it. Every weekend we were at my dad's, we never had anything but wild game. We were either eating venison, fish, rabbit, turkey, pheasant, quail, or not quail, but quail here, but grouse, squirrel. It was everything. I mean, we ate a lot of fish, and I loved it. We'd take white bread, big old chunks of butter, and my dad would flour those bluegill fillets, and he would deep fry them. And oh man, I know it's not the healthiest, but man, was it good.
Yeah, my favorite fish to eat is bluegill. I'm gonna tell you, one that you see a lot of people throwing back or golfing at when they catch them is sheephead. People look at sheephead, and they're a rough fish, but yeah, I'm gonna tell you, they taste a lot like bluegill.
Really?
So yeah, we keep them all the time. If Hunter was out here in the garage, he's actually in tying lures. But Yeah, we eat sheephead all the time. It tastes just like you're eating bluegill, but only get bigger pieces, you know.
Yeah.
But
That's cool. Well, you're responsible, I mean, for a lot of the good muskie fish in that area because you've been an advocate for a long time. You know, like you said, sat on the board and you were pushing for it. When I lived in West Salem, I remember you calling me and we chatted and you're like, they're in Lake Neshonoc. There's muskies in there, JP. You got to be fishing them and start a muskie chapter. You always told me that. Like you're
yep,
passionate about it. And I really like that.
yep,
I love it when people are passionate about something because when you couple passion with action, now you start to see
yeah,
results. Like that's exactly what you did. Your passion for fishing and musky fishing with action of
right.
getting on a board and getting people to sponsor and contribute to the stocking of the lakes has made a difference. And now you've turned it into a business. So it's a neat full circle story. I really I like how you've done that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get as involved nowhere near with the club as I used to be, but I do. What I always do is I always donate. I always donate a trip every year. I always donate lures and stuff to the banquet and things like that. Because it got to be where one thing starts to take over your life, you start to run short on time, and so we got Adam and Janelle, their husband and wife. They run pretty much do a lot of running of the Muskie Club now, and they're younger, and down the road, maybe it'll be Hunter and their kid, and to be able to keep it going like that. That's how things should happen.
Yeah.
And everybody should share a little bit. And later on, I might jump back in with something, but they're doing a good job. Yeah, that they do like a tournament and a banquet that they do every year. Now this year the tournament's going to be in September instead of June because of the COVID thing. Hopefully everything goes right, but that's been going on for quite a number of years now, that tournament. And I used to run it with all judge boats. I had to find like 10 judge boats every year, and now we do it all with cell phones and cameras and bump boards and you get a numbered trinket, and that way you can't cheat and everything has to be on the board. I mean, everything's evolved and how we do things with that. But the banquets where we make the money at for the club and raffle tickets at shows, like we go to fishing shows and muskie shows like the Madison Fishing Expo, the Wisconsin Muskie Expo up in Wausau. Those are two places that they'll sell raffle tickets at, which I'll also be there. Which I used to be in them booths and sell. I mean, I would lose my voice selling raffle tickets at a show. But now I lose my voice talking to people about my stuff in my own booth.
Yeah.
It's just things like I said evolve into other things, and then somebody else has to pick up and take over where you left off, and they've done a great job of doing it. So
that's good. I do want to talk about
along with some other members,
because you and I had a great conversation the other day. I was out for a walk, and you and I were talking. We ended up talking for about probably 30 minutes. And I'm like, Mark, I got to get you on the podcast. This is such good stuff. But before we get into that stuff, what got you into the lures? I want, kind of tell me how you ended up going from guiding and then building lures, and then kind of show me what your lures are and all that kind of stuff.
Well, this here was the very first lure.
Eat Me lure.
This used to be the Eat Me lure, but it's not anymore. I had to change the name, and
Why?
people knew it as that. I had a guy come after me, and I had a cease and desist. So he had an Eat Me lure out, and it was like So anyway, it's a same-ish lure now. My dad and I came up with this, and I've refined it since. Now I used to make them out of wood. I probably still got wood blanks here somewhere where I used to turn them on lathe, and then I was doing enough of them. I had a neighbor turning them on the lathe, and anyway, so what's on the other side of this wall here is my paint booth. That's how I do the paint jobs and stuff.
You paint those yourself too?
Yeah.
You dip them? Do they dip? You dip them in like a?
No, this is all airbrush. No
kidding.
Yep. Actually, Mom painted some because she used to work in airbrush. I had her paint some one time. She did a good job, except for a couple of them she painted upside down. And what the heck? Because she, you
So
know, she, if it was a cake, she knew what she was doing. But
yeah, take me through the process of that, of that.
so
If
this
you're
this
still
here
doing it
is
with
not
wood.
wooden anymore. So basically, and the kids help with a lot of this because I got 8 different lures here, and which you can get on my website all online. But the thing is these ones, like the wooden ones, I don't know, like even the old Suics and the other lures that are out there that people are used to knowing as a wooden muskie lure, you would get different actions from different ones, and they were the same bait. But what would happen when you cut a tree down, the same tree, the same wood out of the same tree, through different parts of that tree, you got like the heartwood and the outer parts of it, you get different densities, which can make that lure act differently. And so I do these out of a 2-part resin now. And so we make up molds. I make up all the molds, and then Hunter and Ava will sit down and measure these out specifically and mix all the stuff and pour it in. And then you pour one in, and within not even 5 minutes, you got a lure body.
So did you make a mold or did you buy a mold?
I make molds. I continually make molds. So they're like a silicone mold that I make. And I'll get like right around 100 lures out of a mold. And so then I got like the original ones, and I come up with a recipe. So you get your buoyancy according to your recipe. So like this body is the same as this body, which is a totally different bait, but they're poured completely different. This is one of my top waters. And with that concave that made that other one wiggle, now this concave pushes water. And while it bulges water out front, the tail spins and ticks that hook. So you get kind of like this plopping, clanking noise as it's going across the water. Well, actually, we just missed one on one of these last night.
So I didn't know that you made, so you're making up the recipe of you pour that into the mold and then it hardens into that body.
Yeah. And then
Wow.
this here's this is a Rip Me lure. And this thing we took to Canada and hammered fish on. Everybody else's lure kept breaking lips. So if you look, like a lot of lips, they're up inside the body and they're not that thick and they break. Well, up there you rip and reel into rocks and you get fish. But I've been on trips where I went through 10 to 20 baits. So that's about $200 worth of lures.
Yeah.
So this here, see how thick that lip is? That's Lexon. And see how it's fastened to the front and it doesn't go up inside and it barely sticks below. Because of that is why this thing, we haven't broke a lip yet. We had not broke one single lip on these. And if one did break, you could fasten a new one to the front. But, and I can change the weight to different, and you can find them bell weights everywhere, but I can change the weight. This would float, but with that weight on there, it sinks slow. So when I rip it, it has a really fast wobble and it kind of goes clack, 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 and so you rip, reel. Of course, it's starting, stopping, and they hit it on the pause. This one here has a recipe so that it rises really slow. So when I reel this, I'll reel it kind of slow and it wobbles down. I'll just give it a quick half crank and it kicks out sideways and then rises up sideways right in front of the fish. Real slow. And that was the one me and Dad came up with.
So how did you come up with that? Hold on. How'd you like, what was your idea in your mind?
We were just bouncing things off. He liked that wide wobble. I says, well, it needs to show a side view. So we were looking at like how an old bass Reno worked. And I thought it needed a tail, to give a little extra when it rises. I wanted to make a jerk bait, but I wanted that wobble that Dad wanted. And so I thought, well, we could have a jerk bait. You don't have to jerk. You can do it all with the reel maybe. So what made me, you look at the old bass Renos, this here was dished out real deep.
Yeah.
And so it gave it enough stability that when that came through, it would walk this way and walk this way and walk this way, and you could reel it really fast. This one, you can't reel fast. You reel it down slow, you get the wobble, but then the quickness with the reel is what makes that thing cut out, and that being shallow instead of a deep cut in the face of it makes it cut out easy. So you can manipulate that bait with your reel.
So you're saying you're reeling it, and then when you give it that quick jerk, it comes up and gives a side profile like
Yeah.
a.
Yeah, it blows out. Like if you tried to reel that, just reel it in fast, it'd flip on you. You reel it in slow, it does what it's supposed to, and then you give it a quick one or a jerk, then it loses its ability to stay center because it's shallower. It doesn't grab the water as good, so then it cuts out.
And
And
that's
I
what
just
it's
leave
hammered
it.
right there. That's
I
what
just
it.
well on the rise, but I leave it there. I don't pull it anymore. So that slack leaves it sideways. They like to T-bone stuff. Pike and muskie love T-boning stuff. So you've seen like some baits that zigzag, like subsurface baits. They like hitting stuff like that because it shows its side, shows its side, shows its side.
Why do they like to
That's
hit it from the
something.
side? Why do they like to hit it? Why do they like to T-bone it?
Well, it's an easier target, and that's part of why your figure eight works really well if you do your figure eight properly. So, like, say 50% of the fish that I catch every year are on figure eight. That's because you do it properly. This is something I was showing Brandon, and Hunter just nailed one on figure eight the other night, and I told him, I says, they're coming in late, so do 2 figure eights whether you see a fish or not. And on the second figure eight, he got nailed right on the high outside turn we were supposed to. So, when you come in, their eyes are on top of their head. I'll bring it deep, tight to the boat, and then I'll go alongside the boat as far as I can reach with that 8-foot rod, and then I go out as far as I can, and that brings the lure up. What it does is it turns it in front of the fish, so they get a little side profile, so they feel that they got a good target. So that's what muskies are so picky about. They don't just go through the water slashing at stuff all the time. They follow. There's no effort into following something. But from a foot away, with one flick of their tail, they have a burst speed of 30 miles an hour. And so they're going to unload a lot of energy real fast when they decide to go after something. So instead of having to unload all that energy, they would rather something gave them a side profile or made it look easy. So what I do is I bring it up on that high outside turn when that fish is faced away from me. That way the fish doesn't see me. It's facing away, but it turns sideways, and it's also just under the surface. So they got a pin between them and the surface. Those are 2 things that make them eat on that high outside turn of that figure eight. That and making the 8 really big because big fish don't turn sharp.
Well, you've got it down to size. I don't think people realize, there's a lot of listeners that I cater to the bow hunting world and all that, but I'm an outdoorsman, and everything you're saying is just, I'm eating it up because you're so in depth in it, and I love it. People don't realize how much work it is in muskie fishing. When I went with you a couple years ago, I remember we fished from sun up. Then my brother and my dad left, and then you and I went back out. We fished again, and I was completely exhausted. You're throwing a big rod, big heavy baits. You're cranking them through the water, and then you'd yell at me if I got lazy and didn't figure eight. Every probably third cast, you need to figure eight that thing. You're always harping on me, and I'm like, I'm too tired. Like, I'm exhausted from
A lot of the
figuring
fish that you see come in late, or you don't see them come in. The ones that you don't see come in are the ones that are serious about hitting. They really are. It's kind of like a shark when they hit a seal. They don't follow right behind the seal. They come up from underneath and nail it. Everybody likes watching Shark Week. I do.
Yeah, they blow them
But
up.
yeah, I mean that's basically they take an approach. And that's basically what a muskie does. So it's about making a good proper figure eight every time. I mean, if you're able to do that and you're accomplishing catching 50% of your fish on your figure eight, you are basically doubling your catch rate.
Makes sense.
50% of them.
With pike, so you got northern pike, walleye pike, muskie pike, back in the waters that you fish that I grew up in.
Yep.
They're all different. I don't know much about them. You do, but I mean, a northern doesn't hit like a muskie does. They don't typically follow. You don't do much.
Oh yeah.
You catch them on figure eights. Are they similar?
Oh yeah, we get them on figure eights. We get them. They follow to boat side. Lots of times. I've even had bass hit on figure eights. I've had walleyes hit on figure eights. Like usually big walleyes hit musky lures on figure eights.
Wow.
It's not a common thing. Smallmouth follow your baits a lot during certain times of the year. I've had catfish follow and take lures. I've caught catfish following lures and now hit right at boat side. I got them. Hold on a second.
You're going to go do some push-ups, or what are you doing?
No. The neighbor started mowing.
You just want to show me a close-up of your beard?
Yeah. I'm up in the boat.
Mark's sitting in his boat in his garage because he's got a wall of bait.
All right.
So what other?
The neighbor started mowing. I didn't know he was going to do that.
That's all right. Don't shoot him now. Let him be.
No, he's a good neighbor.
Let him be. So what else you got on the wall? You got any spinner baits? Bucktail baits?
So this here's I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
That's basically I made a jitter spinner. Remember the old jitter bug?
Yeah.
So this is the same-ish bug. And for a long time I wondered, because what we like to do in muskie fishing is show them something different. And so nobody else does this. I got a jitterbug front that I use as a blade. And sometimes they're tricky to make spin, but it's got a really awkward wobble as it goes around the shaft. I got the large jitter spinners and I got the small ones.
Wow.
You know, this is a smaller one. And so that's one that I got. Then I got the quadra spin, which is like a turbine.
Yeah.
So when that goes through the water. So we had fish on that.
How does that work? Does that work pretty good?
Yeah, I got fish on all this stuff. This one, I've had 7 fish openers on this before. I've made this actually, and I told your brother this, when the last time you guys fished with me, like a long time ago, see how I got this bend in the blade? That came to my mind when I was fishing with you guys.
Huh.
Do you remember when your dad had one on, and then we got down, and then he wasn't into casting all that much, and we got down around the corner, and I cast up under a tree, and I smacked a limb. It bent my blade like that. A lot worse than that, actually. But when I went to pull it, it shuddered. And a fish, remember how a muskie come jumping out of the water?
Yeah.
Your dad stood up immediately and took a cast and started laughing.
Yeah, I do. I remember.
Remember that?
Yeah.
All right. That's when I came up with that. So, because it made that blade start instantly. And so this was a blade. I mean, I was catching fish on this thing really good. Back then it was, let's see. It'd have been the color of that blue one there. But that was one that I was using a lot up there, and I had 7 fish opener up on Peatwell on that. But it was a really hard thing to get to spin. And the thing is like some of the MEPS like spinners had the willows, but they didn't come back as far. This one comes back almost all the way to the hook, and that's to help it get through cover a little bit. But it's also to give it good lift. So I can fish this in relatively really shallow water. So I guess what I was getting at is the MEPS one, the blade is a lot thicker and heavier. And a lot of the willows on inlines do not work well or do not want to start unless they were a heavier blade. And I didn't want a heavier blade because that was just going to be more weight onto my lure that I didn't want because I'm going in really shallow water. Excuse me. So what I was doing was looking for a lighter blade coupled with, I had my 1/2 ounce sinker for the body, but I didn't want to add any more weight to that. So I went with the thinner blade and the long blade, and it gives me a lot of lift. So I got a lot of control and slow roll in this in shallow water, but that's after I get it started. So back then I was always pumping the rod, trying to get that blade to go in, and it wasn't really user friendly. So I never sold it back then. It was a good bait, but some people could do it and some people couldn't. A lot of people don't get after it when they, work a spinner. So that day when I hit that branch, it bent that. And so that's how I am. I'm taking note of things in my head as I'm doing things all the time. I'm constantly looking at things, whether it's about catching fish or trying to, dial in where fish are or why fish may be here. Or I'm always thinking, I could be goofing around the boat or talking and people don't realize it, but my wheels are turning. And when that happened, it started instantly. So I just tried slight bends, and that I've been doing that ever since.
I've been wondering if your wheels have been turning for 27 years, Mark, or for 40 years, but apparently they have been, buddy. They've been.
Oh yeah.
I'm teasing
Sometimes
you.
they squeak.
Teacher, same thing. Why is Mark not paying attention? Well, in his mind, he's thinking about spinner blades and rubber tails.
Yeah. Remember Alex? Remember we used to get Alex?
I never got one, Mark. I never got in trouble.
Whatever.
I never got in trouble in school. I was usually probably in the honors class studying or writing
Were you?
poetry or something.
I remember I got an Alec one time for it was Mrs. Brown. She was kind of mad at everybody for something. She says, "Whose glue is this?" And I told her it was Elmer's. I got sent to Alec.
So Alec was a detention place, a daily detention you got sent if you were in school. And then the worst part was you had to have your parents sign it. And then bring it back. I remember I'd be scared to death all day. I'm like, oh, I got another Alec today. Mom, will you sign my? I ain't signing another Alec. Then you try to forge one, and then you get another Alec, and you got to sign 2 Alecs.
Yep.
I really didn't get that many though. I mean, I only got a couple probably in all high school. I like to screw around. I wasn't the greatest kid, but I didn't get a lot of Alecs.
Yeah, I remember looking at birth certificates and stuff, trying to find a signature like a copy. But you know, that time there with the Mrs. Brown one, but Elmer's, it's Elmer's. I showed that to Mom. She started laughing. She thought that one was funny. Which it was.
Mrs. Brown.
I mean, how could you not laugh at that, right?
Well, yeah. Who was the teacher that was Mrs. Olson? She lived down below my dad's house by the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
I was thinking that was Mrs. Brown. So let's get back to muskie fishing. We'll get on a tangent there. So you and I the other day were talking, and we were just talking about fishing, and I was wondering how much longer you fish. Do you fish all summer? You started talking about water temperature and people saying, oh, you shouldn't fish in this degree and that degree. And then we got talking about muskie and lactic acid and all that stuff. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So like one of the things, and it's getting hit really hard this year. So, there's a lot of armchair quarterbacks, keyboard warriors on the internet anymore that they want to depict what you should and shouldn't be doing. When you post a picture, oh, you shouldn't be fishing because the water's too hot. The water's hot where they're at. And they don't realize that, people don't understand, just because their body of water is hot doesn't mean it is on another body of water. And that's one thing.
And why is that relevant? Why is water temperature relevant?
Because it's hard on fish. So what muskies are very susceptible to mortality. And really, I mean, you shouldn't even muskie fish unless you really know what you're doing. I mean, because the amount of effort that goes into muskie fishing, or I mean, just having muskies is an immense thing. I mean, there's a lot of clubs that spend I've sat in dunk tanks and done car smashes, lost my voice selling tickets. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of guys like me. It's not just me. There's a lot of guys in Muskie Inc. clubs that have worked their tails off to make sure, and donations and all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of money spent out of people's pockets and time spent to make sure that we have muskies. And it takes like 8 to 10 years just for one to reach 40 inches.
Wow.
Which is basically just the beginning of decent adult spawning for a female muskie. So, you couple all that, and then the fact that they don't reproduce really well anyway because their eggs don't do good in things like silt. And you look at our lakes, like the average lifespan of a lake is like 100 years to where things start getting. In fact, they just dredged redstone, which is a good thing. But all these things happen and need to happen to bring your lake quality back up, so that it's good for not just water skiing and things like that, but good for the fishery and the fish and spawning habitat and all the things that there needs to be. And I guess when it comes to water temperature, muskies are really affected by water temperature and flow, but they're also affected in a negative way when it gets too warm. Now, when you're a really seasoned veteran at muskie fishing, you can, not to be measuring them and taking pictures of things real long and whatnot. You know, a seasoned muskie veteran can probably stand being in a little warmer water than what somebody else can. But for some reason, we got some guys that have been, you know, on TV and whatnot. You know, they've basically been television stars on TV, and they'll get on there and they'll preach how you shouldn't fish in water that's over 80 degrees. And, you know, and so they get everybody buying into this. Then you get your armchair quarterbacks on the internet saying you shouldn't be. But the thing is I'm not in 80-degree water most of the time. I'm in like, well, we were just in 74-degree water. I had another guide here just recently. I'm not going to mention names, but he's been guiding the area longer than I have. And he's like, why are you catching, you know, still fishing muskies in 80-degree water? He texted me. I'm like, I'm not, you know? And so I call him up. I'm like, you know, I'm like, what's the problem? He says, well, you know, that's not good for the fish. I said, well, we're not doing anything bad for the fish. I said, I'm in this temperature water and this temperature water. Well, how can that be? He says. I'm like, well, haven't you been fishing here in the area longer than me? I mean, you got to be, you got to realize that your water temperature, I mean, we're talking 24,000 acres of water on Petenwell and 18,000 on Castle Rock. You think the water temperature is the same on the whole thing? You know? So you get in certain areas, you're going to have water temperatures that are completely different. And he's one of these people that, you know, sometimes people believe too much of what the DNR says. And a lot of times I think, I'm sorry to say this about the DNR because they shouldn't have to, but a lot of times your people that are coming straight out of school believe everything that they read in that book. But them same people in another aspect. So let's say the DNR tells this person that the water temperature, and this is what was told to him, was the same 18 feet down as it was on the surface. And it was 80-degree water temp on the surface. Now, anybody who's ever swam in a lake knows that that is not the case. Your feet are, your toes are cold when your neck is warm, you know, and that's, you know, 5 feet down or whatever. So, you know, these temperatures that they're, you know, worrying about, and the information that he's getting from this DNR person is wrong. I'm guessing maybe there's something wrong with their equipment that they measure that with, but you know, you got to be smart enough to realize there's something wrong with that equipment. When I did wastewater, all of our equipment per the DNR had to be checked through weights and measures once a year. You know, so all our scales, our thermometers, and our oven temperatures, everything had to be proven, you know, because I was in a lab. So if we got fish biologists that are going out and doing this stuff, one of the other things that I'm not a real fan of, because they worry about, you got people worrying and calling somebody up about 80-degree water. When you got fish, if you're catching a fish in that water, that fish is living in that water. It's living, you know? So I don't think it's hurting it all that much if it's deciding to live there. You do have to handle it better. If you're not good at handling them, I'd say about 75 degrees and up, you probably shouldn't. And I wouldn't fish anything in like 80, 83 or above in my realm. If you're an average muskie fisherman, I would stick to the 80 thing. If you were somebody that's new to it, I would be doing it with somebody that knows what they're doing, even if it's not a guide, until you become good at it. You know, when a person catches a fish, they're all excited. It's just like buck fever. I mean, I watched people tremble, you know, and so you got to really have your wits about you. I've seen people try to bring them in the boat. You don't want to bring them in the boat, you know, in the net. You leave them in the water, you know, at boat side. I got a special net that's got, you know, it's got a really thick coating. I'll show you here. Hold on. I don't know if you can see this coating, how thick it is right here, but that coating, a lot of people in the net making industry say that was good for the fish, you know, the slime on the fish. What that coating is good for is not tangling. So we use 80-pound Power Pro, 150-pound leader, and you get that fish to the net fast. So it's good and green, meaning full of vinegar, full of vigor, big word for me today. But when you bring it to the net that fast, you get it in the net that fast. Most nets that are made of normal material would tangle real easy, and that net doesn't. So if you got one that tangles up, it's hard to let them go green or let them go fast. Now you got a fish all tangled up. You got to work on a lot longer. Having the proper tools and everything where you can get a fish unhooked, picture quick, and right back in the water is what you want to do. So you get them in the net green, you let them go green. I mean, all the fish that we fight are in the net in not even a minute. It's just a wild minute, and that's what makes it fun. But then you get them right back in the water quick. Certain baits I will not use when it's over 75 degrees, like baits with big rubber tails. I'll stay away from, because when they flare their mouth onto a lure, it's soft and malleable. That whole thing goes into their throat. Well, they get water or oxygen to their gills by water going through there. And now if you clog that whole thing up, you're not getting the oxygen going to it. So therefore, I fish with things like, like this, or, something a small body baits, and I do really good in the summertime when it's warmer. Once things start to cool off again, then I'll start using, some of you see like that big bait there on the wall, things like that. Then I'll break out that stuff. But when that stuff gets all clogged up in the throat, it'd be like, those bigger fish, it's harder on them than it is the smaller fish. So it'd be like, if you were wrestling some old guy and choking him, he couldn't get oxygen while you were wrestling him. He probably wouldn't fare very well. Might even kill him, So that's kind of like, now you're also in an environment where it's warmer. So once it's 75 degrees or above, I will not fish with those types of lures. I'll fish with different types of lures. That's something nobody even really talks about in the industry, but I do. That's just something that I take note of when I'm fishing, just like I took note of, when my blade hit the tree and bent it. You start noticing things, and so you adjust how you do things and what you do according to what you see.
Yeah, we also talked a little bit about, you'd mentioned it, just a flick of the tail, they can hit, from 1 foot away, a 30-mile-an-hour burst. Yeah. And what that does to their body. I mean, the lactic acid, and when we equated it to working out, like me, if I go do certain workouts, creates so much lactic acid, I'm sore for 4 days, and you do that to a fish and don't handle it right, and you let it go, it's just going to float away.
Right. And that's why you want to be really fast. Some people see them pulling them back and forth in water. I don't. I set them in there, make sure they're upright, and let them be. Because one of the other thing that gets them the lactic acid buildup, and this is even probably worse, is stress. Now, any of you that have ever had goldfish die, you see the goldfish start to act weird, and it takes maybe a week or so, and then pretty soon the goldfish is dead. Well, when they get too many fish, and there's lots of different things that can do that to a fish, but when you get too many fish in a live well or a fish tank or something like that, they get nerved up. Now, it's one of the things that the DNR does. They go around, they do the shocking and stuff like that. Everybody's worried in these clubs about the 80-degree temperature, and they're busting all their fellow muskie fishermen about this and that. And instead, they should be on the same side and looking at things. But we got clubs that are donating money to the DNR for shocking boats and things like that. And it doesn't make any sense to me, because what it is, we pay our license fees to the DNR. And it's supposed to create a good fishery. And what I've seen over the years, I do good on the fishery that I'm on, but I've actually seen it go down. 10 years ago, they started doing pike netting on Castle Rock. Previous to that, I caught a lot more northern pike, and we got a bunch of northern pike yesterday, but we caught a lot. I mean, I'd get 5-6 pike every time I went muskie fishing, hands down. The muskies, we got more too. The thing is when they put pike nets in, you get too many fish in a net. You could have like 100 fish in a net. And 10 years ago, they had 800 and something pike that they caught, just the pike, not including the other fish that went into those nets. And they're, fish biologist was bragging to me, and she was astounded at how big these pike were, like pike that were over 40 inches. And you know what I didn't catch that year until July was a pike. I did not get, and it wasn't just me. I talked to some other good sticks. Smitty was one. He's like, where are all the pike? I says, they fike netted. I've seen after they fike netted how fish have washed over the Redstone Dam and they were barely alive, big walleyes. When they did Puckway, they hired some guys to net the carp. And that's not fike netting, but they got a bunch of walleyes, giant walleyes in their nets, and they were washing up all over the beach and stuff. A lot of these fish don't float; they sink, or they, when they go off and die, and it's just on how their air bladder is when they die. But that lactic acid builds up and it kills them. It doesn't kill them right away. Just like your goldfish takes a week to die because you get too many fish in the tank and they get nerved up, and that kills them. The stress that is caused by just putting two different kinds of fish together in an enclosed place, like a betta fish, they tell you not to put with other fish that can't handle that. And what I mean by that is betta fish are they're always going to pester other fish, and some fish species can't handle that. So that's why you don't put those two types of fish together in an aquarium, because it'll kill the other fish. They'll get so stressed out that it kills them. So what happens when you have too many in a net is it kills them. So what the DNR is doing is they're doing all this for studies. So they're not creating a good fishery, they're creating a good laboratory. And that's what we've been paying for. And I wish there was a way to change that and get everybody to realize what's going on. Right now, when we stock fish, they want to pit tag every single fish. Now they're making our club pay for all of them. Now they want to do away with our stocking and want us to fund the DNR. And they haven't learned to live within their means. They keep creating more biologists and more studies, and all of a sudden they can't afford this or that. And so then you got like a muskie club buying them a fishing boat, or a shocking boat, because they can't afford it. And they're always got their hand out. And so many government agencies, and this is one that affects, I've seen it in wastewater, and I could go into that. You don't even know how much money is wasted. Wastewater, I've seen it screwed up in. County Deer Advisory Committee, I was the secretary on. I've watched that. Everything that they touch is completely and utterly wrong.
So basically what you're saying is more government is not the answer.
Not the answer.
Not
Your local
anything,
fishing clubs
to anything.
have a better, your local fishing clubs know what's going on locally, and they have a better handle and grasp. And, listen to the guys that are on the water all the time that know something, that sees that, this is like, if I was, I don't know, I was into all this stuff when I was a kid, back when like my Uncle Al and all them, they started the Bass Busters. I was into all that stuff when I was a kid, and it's kind of like a lot of what taught me to think the way I do about the fishing club, that, I kind of mentored now. And, there's a lot of things that go on. And, back then, your fish biologists were way different. I'm not against somebody getting an education, but I think they're really, it's about job creation anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's where it's going. If we really want to do things good for our fisheries, I think we need to stop the infighting, like about the 80-degree thing and this and that, and realize that this person's not actually fishing there. Really, what you should be doing is everybody should be working together. You should be doing things to raise money and stock fish. You should be working on getting size limits, in which the DNR fought for years. I watched the Tim Simonson at the Conservation Congress do a 45-minute PowerPoint presentation back when it was 34 inches statewide. He was trying to get it to be 40, and they shot it down because they had there was a bunch of liberal guys on one table, and you know how Robert's rules works. Everybody says yay or nay. They were just yelling. 6 guys were yelling louder than the next 20-something people. And so they were letting that stuff fly. And that's how I got the 50-inch to go through on Redstone, because I got my one shot down in Castle Rock and Petenwell. So when I had to rebuttal, glad I didn't get arrested, but I went over and I pounded my fists on the table and I yelled, "Shame on you." And then I pointed out what they were doing. And after they did it, they did it again, the vote. And then one guy raised his hand and said he wanted a hand vote, and we got the 50-inch size limit.
Wow.
So, and then I got ridiculed by some other muskie fishermen when I got out in the lobby about how I should control my temperament. And I basically told him off and told him his didn't go through and mine did, and maybe he should look into other things that need to be controlled. Because this is one of the reasons we were being, the DNR wasn't putting the 50-inch size limit through unless it went through the Congress, and it was getting shut down in the Congress for years. And they were already on a 54-inch size limit in Minnesota, and we're still trying to get a 40-inch statewide and a 50. Now we've got the 40 statewide. We got lots of them that are 50 now, but you know, lots of people in the DNR like Tim Simonson. There's good people in there. There's certain people, you know, it's kind of like a little civil war going on inside the DNR.
Well, I think, why in the world is a fish limit getting all the way to Congress? Why are we wasting all our tax dollars to send that all the way to Congress?
It's Conservation Congress, which is a made up of people. So I used to be on the Warm Water Committee of the Conservation Congress. We sit and decide things. And I mean, it's long talks. You sit and think about everything. It's kind of like playing devil's advocate on everything that tries to come across. And that does need to be done. But, you know, the fish. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I thought.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to, you said, you know, when I kind of joked and I said, so you mean government's not the answer? And obviously we're in the biggest political crap storm we've ever been in America. Well, not really. We've always been in a mess like this about every 4 years, but just, right. I know you've been also very vocal in the deer management, back in Wisconsin. I followed you on Facebook quite a bit, and you're always trying to get people to the meetings. They made a mess out of that.
Yeah, they did.
In Wisconsin. I mean, a terrible mess out of it. And you kind of always want to wonder, like, could we unpeel the layers and find out what's the root cause of some of this stuff?
Oh,
it's sportsmen and women that are out there that are living, breathing this stuff that could come forth and say, no, that's not the best plan.
I've actually talked to Dr. Kroll.
Yeah.
Personally, a number of times, and let him know what was going on. And this
has he been good?
This is not what he intended at all. You know, and when they announced that they hired him and this, you know, everybody was bad mouthing him because they're seeing all the bad stuff the DNR is doing. It's just giving him a bad name, and this isn't what he wanted at all.
Yeah. I would assume he's been pretty good. He'd fight for. I mean, the guy knows deer.
Oh, definitely. There's nobody knows deer like that guy.
Yeah.
I've had long conversations with him. Very smart man when it comes to deer. He stuck his whole life into it. You know, I mean, that's what you get when a person sticks their whole life into it. A lot of our biologists, they come, you know what, they're sticking a lot of money into sturgeon. I mean, they stock sturgeon here. Unbelievable. Nobody even wants them or fishes them. I mean, it's just, this is what our DNR does. It's not anything that the sportsman wants.
So what is the point of to increase the sturgeon population? Why? What? Because
they're prehistoric, and, you know, I mean, JP, if they could bring back a T-Rex, I think we'd have them running.
You want to know what else is prehistoric, Mark? A lot of people that sit in government, been there for 40 years, haven't got anything done but screwing this up. A lot of prehistoric things there. We don't want to bring them back. We want to get them out. Come on.
Yeah, you know, but it's sad that we got all political on this, and I kind of led us down that road. But this is the stuff that I've been seeing. It's in every aspect of everything. They've indoctrinated like a lot of these people that I'm talking about from the DNR, they come out of Stevens Point. There's a lot of things that go on there that aren't necessarily how they should be. The person that they should be listening to is the sportsman. And that's what Dr. Cole tried to set up with the County Deer Advisory Committee. And I would catch them, they would twist words around, and I'd have these people sitting in the audience, and I would just stand up and speak out of turn because that's me. And I would just point out what they really meant, but how they worded it made it sound a completely different way. So not that I was super smart to understand it, but I don't know, I'm really good at test taking. And so like there's those, like those, they always got those questions that are, there's like 3 right ones, but one's really right. And there's like one word. Yeah. And so I'm good at catching that. And I'd like point that out. And I said, isn't that what you really mean? And then, everybody in the audience would want to know. And they're like, yeah, that's what I meant. And I just you could see the scour on their face that they literally hated me, when I was there. But
wow. Well, you've done an awesome job, Mark. And we've been friends forever since we've been just little itty bitty kids. And I think it's been really neat watching you grow into your passion and turn it into a business. You got a bait business, you got a guiding business. I want to talk quickly about bear hunting here in a little bit, but where are you guys at as far as, let's wrap up with Muskie, and just passion, the action you put into it, you're immersing your life into it, and every day you're on the water, making a living, getting people fish. I mean, it's so amazing. That's what makes America great. It isn't the government that makes America great. It's people like you that have an idea, that pay attention to, hey, I was casting a bait and it ended up hitting a limb and it bent the bait. And while I'm entertaining these goofballs down in the boat, which happened to be me and my brother and my dad, you're looking at that bait at the same time and your wheels are turning. You've turned it into a great little business. I love that aspect of it. So how many muskies have you guys, I've been trying to keep track, 48, 49, 50. I don't know where you're at now, but this year, where are you guys at?
The number's lower, but I would like to point out your brother lost 2 of them.
Yeah, but he did catch 2 of them, and he said he
seriously
can't come back.
So I guess the number is lower. I had 137 total last year, which was pretty astronomical for this area.
Pull that phone closer to you a little bit, if you don't mind. You kind of got quiet on there. There you go.
I had 137 of them last year, which was an astronomical number for this area. But this year I'm at like 35, I think, right now. And so the numbers are down. But if we'd have boated every fish that we've had on, here's the thing. As you get known, some years you get more and some years you get less people that are good at doing this, and some years you get a lot of people that are new to it. And so I've had a lot of really new people to this year, and so that's you're going to end up with some fish that come off and fish that are lost. When you get a muskie on, one, you got to set the hook hard. 2, you got to stay after the reel, and then when you get them to boat side, I pull them around in a direction. If you just keep your line tight, say like the line is going from the fish or the fish's mouth to you, and the fish is shaking, you're just holding it tight. It's going tight, loose, tight, loose. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
And so when you're pulling them in a direction, it keeps it tight, and it makes it act like a parachute against them. And so that's something else that I started doing, is I started pulling fish around at boat side. And the very first time I did that, I was by myself and I forgot to have my net out. And so while I was pulling my net out, I was moving the fish around in a circle, and I noticed how well it worked. And so that's something else I just started doing. I stay after the reel. A lot of people would fight them more with their drag and let play the fish. And to me, you play the fish too long, you're going to kill the fish. I get them right in and get them to that net as soon as I can. But keeping them on, like I said, once we got them in the net, about 70% of them, the hooks fall out. So you can imagine if somebody lets off that pressure or just lets that fish shake, thinking they're playing the fish, that fish is coming off because that pressure is coming off, just like it would as if it was in the net. So that's why you end up losing a lot some years. We'd probably have over double the number that I got right now if it wasn't for that. So like yesterday, we lost 2, caught 2, and had 3 more try, and we caught I can't remember, like 4 pike or whatever it was. When Brandon was out with me, we he caught 2 and lost 2. The very first one he lost, and I told him, you gotta get after, you set the hook harder and get after the reel.
He said you didn't tell him. He said Mark seems pretty laid back, but boy, you get a fish on, he gets after you. Get that thing, get on it. All of a sudden you exploded. He's screaming at you.
Yeah, I get excited.
He's hooked.
Too.
He's hooked now, Mark.
I know he is.
He wants to go again.
I know he's hooked. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Gives you something else to have vigor about.
Yeah.
Just like whitetail hunting or whatever.
Well, speaking of, go ahead.
But yeah, I mean that's the whole joy of it. I mean, is seeing people get that way, and I get that way even when other people have one, just because it still gets you going, Well,
we need to write a song like Muskie Fever.
Oh, I already got songs. What did he tell you?
No, but I mean, it just in my mind, I'm thinking you got Buck Fever. There's so many songs about that. There's got to be something about, because I know what Muskie Fever is. I mean, my buddy and I were just talking about this when we were in Colorado. Yeah. We were talking about big follow-ups, and there is nothing that will send your heart through the roof than when you're reeling in and that big old thing just looks like a log coming in, and you're like, oh, I mean, it's exhilarating.
Yeah, Hunter had one that was probably high 50s. It was huge. Come in on a bait when we were in Canada. I watched him fall apart at boat side. It was great.
Yeah, but, I remember I was fishing in Canada I tell this story all the time. I was fishing in Canada with my grandpa, and it was this big, we were in the big wide open, and we're on our map, it showed like there was a sunken island, and we went out to it, and it was probably, I would say, like 100 yards wide that was super deep, and then it came up to about an 8-foot just rock shelf, but like 100 yards square, so to speak, big rock shelf. And I told my grandpa, I'm like, we're coming back here this evening just before dark. I just got to believe that fish are going to come up into this to feed. I don't know why. I just, I think they come up into the shallows or whatever. And I'm throwing a big old Rapala. I mean, it's like a foot-long Rapala. And my grandpa was older. And I think I had like 4, 5, or 6 follow-ups. I ended up catching one really big 40-plus inch northern. But it was to the point where it seemed like every cast, I could barely bring that lure in because I'm like, I don't even want to know what's going to be behind it. Because the first time I do it, I'm real, all of a sudden this thing comes up. I'm like, oh, grandpa. Like I turned into a little kid. My grandpa's kicking stuff all over the place. He's trying to get over and look at it. He couldn't see by then. He couldn't hear by then. And I don't know how many times he probably had big old fish following it up. But, I'm like, you getting anything? I'm not getting anything. But, man, I was on edge. Like, I was so tense. It was so exhilarating. I was hooked.
Yeah.
And here I am in Arizona where, your game fish are trout, and so
right.
I think
there's some muskies down there.
What's that?
I think there's some muskies and some, I read about tigers being in some places, some down there.
I'll have to research that and find out. Let's talk about bear hunting quick. Let's end with that. So I just saw you posted on Facebook, and Wisconsin's got multiple zones, and they have a lot of bears, and they have some great bears. Really, where you're at, they have some great bears. And I just asked you, I'm like, are you guiding bear hunting? And you're like, yeah, I've been guiding bear hunting for quite a while. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, it's not quite a while. I just started doing it this year. I got into bear hunting.
I thought you told me you've been doing it for like 7 years. I'm sorry.
No. I got into doing it a few years back, and there's this other guy that I know from the area here, and now he lives up towards Toma, and he's been doing it for a long time. And I was wanting to get into doing it, and he graceful as he is, he got me into doing it. So he does a lot of dog. He does it with dogs up in like A and stuff, but
which is a zone, zone A, zone B.
Yeah. So that's like up by Hayward and whatnot. Yeah. But now we're all in C, and so you have a training period that you can use. So he's got like probably 60 spots that he's baited over the years. And I mean, this guy's been into bear hunting for a long time, and I'm really good with PR work. So we kind of teamed up together. You know, so I'm putting it out there, and I'm going out and getting these pictures. Hunter's just enjoying the hell out of it, going up there and baiting bear. He's seen his first one the other day.
And Hunter's your son. How old is he now?
13.
13.
And so we're in there, and he's doing the baiting, and I'm keeping my hands clean so the bears don't chew on the cameras. So I'm working the cameras and doing the camera stuff, and he's baiting. All of a sudden he goes, "Dad." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I see one." I go, "How big is it?" He goes, "I don't know. It's a blob." Because, you know, like once they're not into the bait site, they're out in the foliage. You just see this big black thing, you know. I go, "What's it doing?" He goes, "It's running away," he says. I said, "Could you tell how big it was?" He's like, all of a sudden he's a bear expert, and he's like, 180, 200, you know. And I'm like, all right, awesome, you know. But we got like multiple bears coming in. I've been posting pictures and stuff. Multiple bears on multiple sites. I got like 9-10 bait sites going, and we got a lot of bears coming in. And I haven't been doing it all that long, but the guy with me has been doing it for a long, long time. And so we're full vested in doing it, and we're hoping to get some clients with some nice bear pictures this year. So
yeah, and so in Wisconsin, non-resident, you got to apply for bear points. Residents, same thing, apply for bear points, but in the zone that you're in is probably the easiest.
Easy, yep. So if you put in, you might get it your first year or within the first 3 years.
Yeah.
Where you go up north in A, it could be 8, 10, 12 years.
Yeah, I shot my first bear, my only bear I shot in A, and I had 8 points. So it took me 8 years. So once you told me you were, I think I'll probably start putting in again. Again, it just brings me back home and try to get in there and draw a bear tag and have you put me on a bear.
Yeah. Well, you'll be on them. We got a lot of them. So.
Yeah. Well, Marky Mark, I got to quit calling you Marky Mark, and I got to start calling you Muskie Mark. Why don't you let the listeners of the Fit Archer podcast know where they can find you? Are you on Instagram?
I am. I probably don't check that as much as I am, but I got a Muskie Marks page on Facebook.
Okay.
I also got my website, which is www.muskiemarks.com. So it's MUSKIEMARKS. If you look it up either way, you're going to find me. You just Google Muskie Mark, you're going to find me. I'm on Google as well.
Buy all your baits on there. They can reach you through there. They can buy your baits through there.
Yeah, on my website. Yep, there'll be a spot that you click on lures, and then you can scroll down to the bottom, and you can click on the different kinds of lures. It's all set up. You can buy it all right on there. It's just order it, and
so I had Coach Take on here.
Mm-hmm.
Are you using some Yogi rods?
This is one of them right here. I got the Go Pack Go with Chuck Cecil 26.
Nice. So how was that little handle that he was showing me? How was that different handle that they're using? Do you like that?
I love it. So here's the thing. When I hold it, let's see if I can just kind of set this up a second. When I hold this rod, I'm like this.
Yep.
And before I used to be like this, and I grip the hell out of my reel. But now I'm like this, and I'm real loose. And the other thing is with these reels, I got the big knobs. I used to be like this. I'm going like this on my wrist, and now I'm a circle. I go like this. So the two things that does, and then this also has the spiraled eyes on it. So the first eye is on top, and then the second eye is just a little bit to the side, and they all end up being underneath. So that takes the torque of the eyes. When your eyes are on top, they're always trying to be pulled underneath, so you don't realize it. But when you're fishing all day, at the end of the day, you'd notice there's maybe something wrong with it. You don't know what from. So I got the spiraled eyes on there.
Did you come up with the spiral eye?
No.
Yourself,
this is something that Mike talked me into, and I was actually reluctant to do it. I was wearing braces on both of my arms because I've done this for so much. I had like a knee surgery from standing with one leg on a trolling motor and the other leg stiff. I mean, I've been fishing. I've fished so hard it beats you up,
Yeah.
And so it'd be February, and I had braces on both my arms for tennis elbow, and it was bad, really bad. And when I used this rod for 1 year, and it's gone. I have that. I'll probably never have it again. I got big hands and stuff, and my wrists are small, and I got carpal tunnel really bad. And when I wake up in the morning, I can't feel my hands and stuff. But when I started using these, I'm not bending my wrist like that when I spin the reel. I'm holding the other one loosely, so I'm not gripping it so hard. And everything all together is, I don't have the braces anymore. So that's what's done it. I mean, you got to, and I've changed how I've done certain things, like how I show people the figure eight and how to cast. You don't even have to use your shoulders. You don't have to lean way out where everybody gets fatigue in the upper back between the shoulder blades from doing your figure eight and everything all day. I got a Tuffy Esox Magnum boat. It's old, but I swear to God, they're the best boat made for muskie fishing. You're slammed right down to the water. You get your toes up to the edge, and it's like the water's right at your feet. So I don't have to like work hard to make this giant figure eight. And giant figure eights are where it's at because 50-inch fish don't turn sharp. I don't turn sharp either anymore. But that's basically.
You're a big 50-incher now, Mark.
Yeah. But yeah.
I think it's pretty cool. Reason I asked about Coach Takes, I know you've seen it, but I think it's cool. We call him Coach Take because he was our football coach. He was one of our teachers, and he, again, same town that we grew up in. You're just a town over now, but he's created a great little business as well. You've created an awesome business, and gosh, I just, growing up where we grew up, I just look at like some of the people in the industry that it's put out. Severson, you, Coach Take. Our little town, because we grew up just living in the outdoors. We're so blessed to have that. And I want all parents to know that, that when you have the opportunity to get your kids into the outdoors, it's about the best thing. I had my oldest son, he's now 15 and a half. He's out of town this weekend with his buddies. When I took him out in 3rd or 4th grade, whatever he was 10, I went to his teacher, and we go to a little private Christian school. And I went to his teacher and I said, hey, I'm going to take Gunner out and we're going to go deer hunting. You know what she said to me? She goes, I think that is the greatest thing you can do for your son. He is going to learn more in those 4 days in the woods with you than he'll ever learn in this classroom. And I'm like, you're my favorite teacher. I'd like to put you all over the news because that's what we got to get kids off video games. We got to get kids off of the streets, get them into the water, get them on the water, get them in the outdoors and learn appreciation.
Yeah, and like going back to the DNR, they don't have as many kids that hunt anymore. Well, after they shot off all the deer with their CWD thing, that's one reason they don't, because kids need to see something while they're out there, even if they don't get something, So they've tried to counteract that by doing things like youth hunts and extending the season. And the DNR just does not get it. When we were kids, 9 days, everybody was in the woods, and it moved a lot of deer. And nowadays, a kid has to sit all day before a deer comes out towards the end of the day. And, they've really messed up what used to be probably the biggest influx to our economy in 9 days of anything, period.
700,000 people would come to Wisconsin, not come to Wisconsin, but 700,000 people would deer hunt on deer season. This is how it was when Mark and I grew up. So you go to school and opening day of gun deer season opened on a Saturday. And then Sunday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday was Thanksgiving. So you had Thursday and Friday off. So we had forms. They were gun hunter deer forms you took to each teacher, and you had to sign off on your assignments. There was hardly anybody but a bunch of girls still in school, other than maybe a few girls that didn't hunt. We were all hunting, creating memories that last a lifetime. Now nobody, they don't even have those forms anymore.
Yeah, I pull Hunter out anyway.
Yeah.
But, because he wants to hunt. But that's they need to get back to that. They need to get back to the 9 days and forget all these goofy seasons and forget the youth hunts. The youth hunt, it shouldn't be a youth hunt. It should be a family hunt.
Yeah.
That they need to bring people back together.
Yep. I
and
agree.
doing it all in 9 days, and you're going to have a better result than what you ever had. One of the things too, the way they're doing everything now, it screws it up for bow hunters. And that's another thing. They got all these early T-zone hunts and all this stuff, and that got a lot of people aren't even doing it. So I don't even know what's the sense in doing it. It's like they just it is what it is, but it shouldn't be.
Well, I know you're a big sports family too, and we are too. We grew up in sports, and you'll remember us driving in my dad's station wagon every Saturday morning and Sunday morning, headed to different towns wrestling, and your guys are still wrestling. And sports is important. I think we've lost a lot of youth to sports, but here's what I do know. I know that sports are important, and I hope they get school lined up where people are going to go to school and they get sports to play. I really do. Kids need it. But I do know at the end of the day, every single athlete, if they can make it to the highest level, sooner or later that ends. And guess what they're still going to be able to do? Go hunting and fishing with their family. So don't neglect them. And I've been so guilty of doing this, Mark. Like, we can't do it. We got another baseball tournament. Can't do it. We got this. Can't do it. We got this sport. I'm to the point now because my son's 15 and in 3 years he's going to be out of the house, and I'm already heartbroken by it because time goes so fast. I'm like, why did I play so many baseball tournaments? Why weren't we fishing more? Why don't we have a fishing boat, fishing these lakes out here every Sunday night as a family, and creating that so that when my son is a dad and he's got kids, they have a tradition of before dinner on Sundays, we go fishing for an hour as a family and glue that family together. Because look at all the problems we're facing in America today. The majority of it stems from what? A fatherless family.
Yeah, it is.
I'm getting way off topic here, but I get passionate about this stuff. I get passionate about seeing kids in the outdoors and
lawyers and systems make that so easy to happen too. It's a lot of these inner city kids are the ones that are suffering too.
Got to get them out of the city and get them into the outdoors. I can't go without showing you this, Mark. I'm not sponsored by these guys.
I can't see it.
Okay.
Hold it up close. Keep coming closer.
This is Duke Cannon lip balm. Okay. Now look at this. What's that say? Can you read that?
Cannon balm.
Cannon balm, offensively large lip balm. This is like a size of a deodorant stick. On the water, you need this stuff. You need to put this on your lips. It's the best chapstick I've ever used in my life. It's like $10 a stick, but I'm telling you, it's worth it.
Cannon balm.
I'm working on my first podcast sponsorship. I keep talking about Duke Cannon, but the problem is I don't even know if they're an outdoor company. If they're not, I'll never use this again. If they're an outdoor sponsored or believing company, I'll keep promoting it whether I ever get a sponsorship or not, because it's good. But if I find out they don't like outdoors and hunting, it's going in the toilet. I'll tell you that.
I would think they would like outdoors, and because a lot of people that are outdoors need lip balm.
Formulated to meet the needs of U.S. military personnel. So I don't know. Well, Muskie Mark, my buddy, my good pal.
All right.
I appreciate you taking time and coming on the podcast. I really do. You and I get to talk quite a bit, and we didn't even talk about faith. We'll get you on after the bear season. I want to get you back on and get some bear stories, and we'll talk about your relationship with Jesus too, because I think you and I had a conversation the other day.
Yep.
And it was good. It really warmed my heart when you called me a couple months ago, and we just had a faith talk, and I'm like, gosh, you're a good guy. And love how you turned out, man. Love that you're doing it right.
Yeah, you too.
All right, buddy. God bless you. Thanks for joining the podcast. I will put in the show notes how to be in touch with you, and I go get Mark's baits and hook him up if you're in the Midwest and Wisconsin, want to get some muskie fishing. He knows what he's doing, and if you want to get bear hunting, I guarantee they're going to put some big boars on the ground. All right. See you, champ.
Yep. Take her easy.